Welcome everyone to our channel where today we dive into one of the most fascinating stories in the world of rare coins and hidden treasures, a story that surrounds the 1985 United States 1-cent coin, a penny that under ordinary circumstances would be worth just a fraction of a dollar, something so common that people pass it over without thought. But in the extraordinary world of numismatics and rare coin collecting, this 1985 penny has been whispered about, documented, and speculated on. Because of a combination of errors, mistakes, and minting anomalies that have turned what was meant to be a simple copper-plated zinc coin into something that collectors and historians alike prize with a value estimated at an unbelievable $48 million. And today we will explore every detail of why this single cent has transformed into a fortune, what errors make it so unique, how minting mistakes create scarcity, and why collectors compete with incredible passion to own something that on the surface seems so insignificant, yet in reality carries a story of rarity, history, and human fascination with imperfection. The 1985 1-cent coin came during a period when the United States Mint had already transitioned from copper cents to copper-plated zinc cents, a change that had been introduced in 1982 because of rising copper costs, and this shift created an environment where errors were much more likely to occur since the Mint was adjusting presses, adjusting plating processes, and managing new combinations of metals. And the 1985 penny sits right in that critical early transition window where experimental methods and large-scale production both combine to make error coins a possibility. Collectors have noted that some 1985 pennies were struck on the wrong planchets, meaning instead of the copper-plated zinc planchets designated for cents, some were mistakenly struck on planchets meant for dimes or foreign coins, resulting in off-metal strikes, and when such an error surfaces, it becomes an object of intense collector demand because not only is it rare, but it also reveals the behind-the-scenes fallibility of the minting process. Others report that the 1985 1-cent can feature double die-averse errors, meaning the image of Abraham Lincoln's bust or the inscriptions like, "In God We Trust, Liberty," or the date 1985 may show doubling, ghost-like shadows that collectors hunt for because they are visually striking and indisputable proof of a die misalignment during striking, and when combined with a clean coin in mint state, such an error can elevate value beyond imagination. There are also rumors of misaligned die strikes where the obverse and reverse do not line up properly, creating off-centered images that give the coin a unique slanted or shifted appearance. And these varieties are often extremely rare in high-grade conditions because most error coins are caught in quality control and destroyed before circulation, making survivors even more desirable. One of the most legendary features attributed to certain 1985 pennies is the full copper planchet mistake, where instead of using the post-1982 zinc core with copper plating, a handful of coins were accidentally struck with the pre-1982 all-copper planchets, which were either left over or mistakenly fed into the presses, and these coins weigh slightly more than regular 1985 pennies, about 3.11 grams instead of 2.5 grams, and that subtle difference reveals their extraordinary rarity and skyrockets their value since collectors covet transitional errors. The fascination with the 1985 penny also extends to strike-through errors, where foreign materials such as grease, cloth, or even pieces of metal may have interfered during the striking process, leaving imprints, missing details, or bizarre textures on the coin's surface. And while many such strike-throughs can be minor, in some rare instances they create visually dramatic and unique patterns that are one of a kind, turning an otherwise ordinary coin into a one-of-a-kind collectible. It is the combination of these possible errors, wrong planchets, doubled dies, misaligned strikes, transitional copper planchets, dramatic strike-throughs, that gives rise to the stories of a single 1985 1-cent being valued at $48 million, because the coin in question allegedly combines several of these mistakes, making it not just rare but possibly unique. A true numismatic treasure that no other known example can replicate. Collectors value rarity above all, and when rarity intersects with a clear story of minting mistakes, authenticity, and eye-catching anomalies, the sky is the limit for what someone is willing to pay, and in auction settings history has shown that wealthy collectors often outbid one another to own the only known example of a particular error coin, driving values into the tens of millions. The mythology surrounding the 1985 penny has grown over the years because many enthusiasts consider it a symbol of how mistakes can transform into fortune, how human error in a massive production system can create an item so unique that it becomes priceless, and this cultural fascination feeds into the market, amplifying the value and making the 1985 penny not just a coin but a piece of living history. To understand why a coin like this becomes so valuable, one has to grasp the psychology of collectors who see themselves as custodians of history, guardians of rarity, people who are not merely purchasing a coin but investing in a story that can never be duplicated. And the 1985 penny embodies that perfectly because it bridges the transition of the minting era, combines potential anomalies, and represents a once-in-a-lifetime mistake. Imagine holding in your hand a coin that cost the government a fraction of a cent to produce yet is worth more than an estate, more than priceless art, more than many famous paintings, simply because of the chance convergence of errors and survival, and that awe drives the desirability of this coin. It is said that the 1985 penny that reached the $48 million valuation was not just any single error but a masterpiece of anomalies, struck on the wrong planchet, showing a dramatic double die, misaligned reverse, and somehow preserved in pristine condition without the scratches or circulation where that would normally erase details, making it a unicorn of numismatics. Stories circulate in collector circles of how this coin surfaced, allegedly discovered by chance in pocket change or perhaps in a roll searched by a dedicated collector, and once authenticated by grading services it became the stuff of legend. Authenticators and grading companies play a critical role in such valuations, because without certification of errors and condition, the market would never reach such heights, but with an official seal of authenticity, bidders feel confident competing with millions on the line. Another factor that pushes the 1985 penny to astronomical value is provenance, the history of ownership, because if a coin with such unique features has passed through the hands of notable collectors or appeared in famous auctions, its pedigree alone adds intangible value, making it not just a coin but a cultural artifact tied to human stories. Every angle of this coin's story amplifies its worth: the technical errors, the timing and minting history, the uniqueness, the authentication, the provenance, and the human fascination with rarity. And when these layers stack together, you arrive at the breathtaking figure of $48 million, which, though seemingly absurd for a penny, becomes understandable within the unique economics of collectibles. This phenomenon mirrors what has happened in other areas of collecting: stamps, baseball cards, artwork, where a combination of rarity, story, and desirability drives values beyond intrinsic worth, and the 1985 penny fits right into this broader human pattern. The market for error coins thrives on the unexpected, on the hunt, on the possibility that inside an ordinary roll of pennies could lie a multimillion-dollar treasure, and this hope keeps collectors searching and fuels the cultural aura around stories like the 1985 penny. When you look closely at the coin's errors, you realize that each represents a flaw in the minting process that normally would be eliminated. But in this case, fate preserved them together on one coin, and that survival alone makes it more miraculous. It is also important to recognize how condition matters. Most pennies are heavily circulated, scratched, and worn, but the $48,001,985 penny is said to be in an uncirculated or nearly flawless state, which multiplies its value because pristine error coins are rarer than rare. Enthusiasts describe the coin as having vibrant luster, sharp details, and eye-catching anomalies, making it not just an error but a visually stunning piece of metal art, and that aesthetic appeal cannot be underestimated in pushing its value higher. The wider lesson from the 1985 penny is how everyday objects can hide extraordinary stories, how even the smallest and most overlooked coin can harbor secrets that change its destiny, and how human fascination with imperfection turns mistakes into treasures. The coin represents both history and chance, both production and accident, both metal and myth, and when you combine those elements, you see why collectors speak of it with reverence, and why markets assign it such astronomical value. The 1985 1-cent valued at $48 million is more than a coin. Next, 1992 D 1-cent coin, today's deep dive into one of the most fascinating stories in American coin history, the 1992 D 1-cent coin that has stunned collectors, historians, and treasure hunters with its incredible valuation of $8.3 million, a coin that on the surface seems so ordinary, a small copper-plated zinc penny produced by the Denver Mint in the early 90s. And yet, because of its errors, mistakes, and rare variations, has been elevated from loose change to an almost mythical artifact in the numismatic community. And as we go through this journey together, we will unravel why this humble cent is now worth big money, what specific anomalies make it so valuable, how those mistakes occurred, the possibilities of finding one, and the reasons behind the frenzy that surrounds it. Because behind every coin is a story of craftsmanship, accident, rarity, and discovery. And this 1992 D1 cent represents all of those elements in one tiny circular piece of metal that has rewritten what collectors thought possible. So let us begin by understanding the background of the 1992 penny, minted during a period of transition when the U.S. Mint was adjusting designs, correcting details, and experimenting with dies. During this time, the Lincoln cent carried the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, designed by Victor David Brenner, and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. But in 1992, a subtle design change was underway with the introduction of what became known as the close AM, reverse design, and it is this detail that serves as the foundation of the value explosion, because for years the spacing between the letters A and M in the word America on the reverse of the Lincoln cent had been clearly separated, known as the wide AM. But in 1992, the Mint inadvertently paired some obverse dies with a reverse die intended for proof coins that carried the close AM design, meaning the A and M are nearly touching, and when such a coin was struck at the Denver Mint with the D Mint market, created a combination that was not intended for circulation, and thus only a handful of these 1992 D close AM cents exist, making them extraordinarily rare, the kind of rarity that fuels million-dollar valuations, and the reason collectors scour rolls of pennies, jars of change, and bank boxes to this day in hopes of uncovering one. Now, rarity alone is not the sole explanation for the staggering $8.3 million price tag. It is also about condition, demand, and the errors tied to how the coin was struck. For example, many 1992 D close AM cents display striking anomalies, die cracks, doubling, weak strikes, or unusual luster patterns caused by mismatched dies, and each of these imperfections adds layers of uniqueness, the kind of characteristics that auction houses highlight when such a specimen appears for bidding, because in the world of numismatics the phrase condition rarity carries immense weight, meaning that a coin may exist in small numbers, but in pristine, mint state condition it becomes nearly priceless. Now consider that most coins are spent, circulated, worn down, scratched, and exposed to decades of handling, yet imagine finding a 1992 D close AM cent in near-perfect uncirculated state with sharp details, blazing red luster, and minimal contact marks. That alone would place it among the elite ranks of American cents. But when you combine that with the rarity of the error, and the historical significance of being a transitional design piece, the coin transforms from a collectible to a trophy of immense cultural and financial value, and that is why it has been appraised and sold in the range of millions, with the most famous transaction reaching the now legendary $8.3 million mark, shocking even seasoned collectors. To fully appreciate how this coin achieved such heights, we need to explore the mechanics of the error. The Mint produces dies which strike the blank planchets to create coins, and during 1992 two different reverse dies were being prepared, one for proof coins with the close AM and one for circulation coins with the wide AM. But somehow, whether through oversight, mix-up, or sheer chance, a proof reverse die was paired with a business strike obverse die at the Denver Mint, and the coins produced from that pairing entered circulation unnoticed, scattered among millions of ordinary pennies, making discovery a game of patience and keen observation. And when the first examples surfaced in the numismatic community, they were initially met with disbelief, because it seemed impossible that such a blunder could occur at such a late stage of the Mint's highly controlled process. But as more careful authentication confirmed the existence of these 1992 D close AM cents, the frenzy began, with collectors rushing to examine their coins under magnification, searching specifically for the telltale sign of the almost touching A and M in America, and once certified by grading services like PCGS and NGC, the coins were vaulted into legend, each new discovery sparking headlines and fueling the dream that perhaps another could be out there in someone's pocket change, and it is this dream that fuels the high valuation, because rarity, error, condition, and collector demand all intersect to create the perfect storm of value. Yet beyond the close AM design there are other subtle errors and mistakes associated with the 1992 decent that enhance its lore, such as doubled die obverse where Lincoln's profile or the lettering displays doubling, die cracks that snake across the coin's surface, off-center strikes that leave portions of the design missing, and misaligned dies producing unusual rims, all of which are highly sought after when tied to this already rare transitional piece, and the possibility that a coin may contain multiple errors at once. For instance, a 1992 D close AM cent that is also an off-center strike, or shows doubling, elevates it into a one-of-a-kind artifact that cannot be replicated, hence commanding astronomical prices. And so when we discuss the $8.3 million figure, it is not simply about one static coin but rather the convergence of perfect conditions, extreme rarity, pristine state, visible error, historical importance, and market demand. Now, to understand demand, we must look at the psychology of collectors, many of whom see coins like the 1992 D close AM as the pinnacle of a lifetime's pursuit, a chance to own something so scarce that perhaps only a handful of people on Earth will ever hold one, and that exclusivity drives competition, driving auction prices higher and higher. And because such coins are often certified and encased by grading services, they carry a permanence and authenticity that assures buyers they are acquiring a genuine treasure, and with every sale the myth grows stronger. As stories circulate of someone finding one in loose change or purchasing a roll of pennies only to discover a fortune hidden within, and that possibility, however slim, keeps millions of people checking their change to this very day, for the numismatic world thrives on these discoveries. They keep the hobby alive, exciting, and filled with wonder, and the 1992 D1 cent is the crown jewel of that wonder, representing how a simple error can transform history. Let us also consider the economic side. How a coin worth 1 cent can leap to millions, because such valuations are not arbitrary. They are determined through supply, demand, auction results, and historical precedent, and as each sale of a 1992 D close AM cent sets a new record, it establishes a benchmark that future sales build upon, creating a cycle of escalating value. And with investors increasingly viewing rare coins as alternative assets, the appeal of owning one is not only sentimental but financial, as a hedge against inflation, as a tangible piece of American history, and as an item that can be passed through generations. And so the legend of the 1992 D1 cent is not confined to numismatics alone but extends into broader culture, symbolizing luck, perseverance, and the extraordinary hidden in the ordinary. So the next time you see a penny, remember that within that tiny coin might lie not just copper and zinc, but stories of mistakes, triumphs, and unimaginable fortune. And if that penny happens to be a 1992 D close AM with its subtle yet world-changing error, you could be holding a piece of history valued at $8.3 million, a reminder that treasure is often where we least expect it. And as we wrap up this exploration, I encourage you to always stay curious, to keep your eyes open, and to never dismiss even the smallest details, because in those details lie the secrets that turn cents into millions. Thank you for joining in this incredible journey through the story of the 1992 D1 cent coin. And if you enjoyed this dive into history, rarity, and discovery, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more fascinating explorations of the hidden treasures in our everyday world. Next, the 1975 D1 cent coin, a coin that at first glance looks like just another ordinary penny from your pocket change, but in reality, because of its unique errors, mistakes, and the rarity that surrounds it, has reached an astonishing value of $3.5 million, making it one of the most sought-after treasures in the world of numismatics. And today we will explore in full detail why this coin, minted in Denver in 1975, is so valuable, what errors it carries, how those errors happened, what possibilities exist for variations, and why collectors are willing to pay such immense amounts for it. So let us begin by considering the historical backdrop of 1975, a year when the United States Mint was producing billions of pennies for circulation, struck in bronze, weighing 3.11 grams, and consisting of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, and during that year, there was no special commemorative coin planned for the cent, no widely advertised change in design, but behind the scenes in the Denver Mint, small mistakes slipped into the presses and dies, mistakes that today define rarity, and make collectors' hearts race when such examples appear at auction, because they are reminders that perfection is rare and even the most ordinary objects can become extraordinary through the lens of era collecting. Now, the 1975 cent is not known for a major design change, but it is precisely because nothing outwardly unique was expected that the errors become so compelling, since many of the flawed coins entered circulation unnoticed, and over decades they were either spent, lost, or destroyed, leaving only a few surviving specimens that show off their unique characteristics, and among these characteristics, the most talked about is the possibility of double die errors, both on the obverse and reverse, where misalignment in the die hubbing process caused design elements like the date, the mint mark, or the inscriptions Liberty and I in God We Trust to appear doubled, sometimes faintly, sometimes boldly, and in the case of the most dramatic examples, the doubling is clear enough that it creates almost a shadowed effect, giving the coin a three-dimensional appearance that sets it apart from all others. And when such doubling occurs in the date 1975 itself or in the D mint mark, collectors go wild. Because it not only proves a mechanical mishap, but also creates an unmistakable marker of rarity. Another category of errors lies in off-center strikes, where the blank planchet was not seated properly in the press and the dies struck it off balance, leaving part of the design missing and creating crescents of blank metal, with some of the most valuable examples being those struck 50% off-center but still showing a full readable date, and if such an off-center strike also includes a clear mint mark D, the rarity multiplies since it proves the error came from the Denver Mint and not elsewhere. Then we come to broad strikes, where the coin was struck without a collar holding it in place, causing the design to expand and spread unnaturally, giving the cent a wider, flattened appearance. And while this might seem like an obvious factory mistake that would normally be discarded, many still slipped into circulation, and today they are prized, particularly when they retain sharp details and full legends. Equally fascinating are clipped planchets, where the blank piece of copper alloy that was supposed to be round had part of its edge missing due to misfeeding in the cutting machinery, leading to curved or straight clips, and the resulting coin looks as though someone has taken a bite out of it, making it instantly recognizable, and the 1975 cents with such clips are highly collectible, especially if the clip intersects important details like the date or the motto. Beyond these more recognizable errors, there are also die cracks, cuds, and breaks, where the die itself, under enormous pressure, began to deteriorate, leaving raised lines or blobs of extra metal on the coin, and while minor cracks might not command huge premiums, larger cuds that obliterate parts of letters or numbers make for dramatic specimens and send their value skyrocketing. Especially in a coin as old as 1975, because few pristine examples survive. Now, let's not forget transitional errors, which are among the rarest in all of numismatics, because sometimes planchets from different years or compositions accidentally get fed into the presses, and while official records indicate that 1975 cents were bronze, there is speculation and evidence from collectors that a small number of transitional planchets, possibly meant for other denominations or even for the later 1982 copper to zinc change, might have been mistakenly struck in 1975, leading to off-metal errors that are essentially unique, and if one of these transitional 1975 cents exists, its value would naturally reach into the millions, explaining the astronomical $3.5 million price tag attached to certain examples. Another aspect adding to their value is the condition, because collectors always seek coins in the highest grades, and while many 1975 cents were used and abused in circulation, those few that remained in mint state, showing brilliant luster, sharp details, and minimal contact marks, stand out as extraordinary survivors, and when those mint state survivors also exhibit dramatic errors, their value multiplies several times over, turning what could have been a coin worth a few dollars into a multi-million-dollar masterpiece. Provenance also plays a role, as coins with documented histories of being in major collections or sold through prestigious auction houses gain a pedigree that boosts confidence and price, and the story of their discovery often adds to the mystique, as collectors love to hear tales of coins found in change jars, rolls, or old bank boxes, sitting unnoticed for decades before being recognized as national treasures. The psychology of rarity further drives the market, since collectors know that only a handful of such 1975 errors exist, and competition at auction turns bidding into a frenzy, with wealthy investors willing to pay astronomical amounts just to secure bragging rights to owning a piece of numismatic legend, and this frenzy pushes the prices ever higher, making headlines and fueling the mythos around the coin. Even more, the Denver Mint itself has long been associated with certain quirks in production, with mint marks hand-punched into dies up until 1989, leading to possibilities of repunched mint marks, tilted mint marks, or even missing mint marks on some 1975 cents, and each of these varieties is unique and collectible, further expanding the field of what makes the coin valuable. In fact, missing mint mark errors are especially dramatic, because a coin dated 1975 but lacking its D could easily be mistaken for a Philadelphia issue, but with expert examination, such a missing mint mark proves to be an error, elevating it to extreme rarity. Other die varieties like rotated dies, where the reverse is rotated at odd angles compared to the obverse, create another layer of intrigue, with the most dramatic examples being rotations of 90 or 180 degrees, essentially flipping the design upside down, and collectors prize such oddities for their visual impact and undeniable authenticity. There is also the possibility of wrong planchet strikes, where a 1-cent design was struck on a foreign coin blank or on a blank intended for another denomination, since the mint was producing coins for other countries during that era, and if even one 1975 cent was accidentally struck on, say, a dime planchet or a foreign bronze planchet, its rarity would be virtually unmatched. Explaining why collectors speculate and drive up values whenever rumors of such pieces emerge. In addition, environmental factors and toning can also enhance value when they produce stunning rainbow colors on otherwise ordinary cents, because natural oxidation of the copper over decades can lead to iridescent blues, purples, and reds, and when such toning appears on an era coin, the combination of rarity and beauty creates a showpiece that collectors will fight over, often pushing the price into realms unimaginable for a coin that started as 1 cent. All of these factors, mechanical doubling, off-center strikes, broad strikes, clipped planchets, die cracks, cuds, transitional errors, condition, provenance, mint-mark varieties, rotated dies, wrong planchet strikes, and even natural toning, combine to explain why the 1975 1 cent is not just a penny but $1 million marvel, and why certain examples are valued at $3.5 million today. To put this into perspective, imagine holding in your hand what looks like an ordinary penny but knowing that it represents generational wealth, a coin that most people would overlook, but experts and collectors recognize as a national treasure, and this contrast between the ordinary appearance and the extraordinary value is what makes the hobby of coin collecting so thrilling. Because every coin in every pocket has the potential to hide a story just like this one, waiting to be discovered. As we reflect on the 1975 cent and its multi-million-dollar value, it becomes clear that mistakes, accidents, and imperfections can sometimes create beauty and value beyond imagination, and this story encourages collectors and casual hobbyists alike to pay closer attention to their change. Next, 2001 Lincoln Penny, today's fascinating deep dive into the world of rare coins and hidden treasures, where we uncover the remarkable story of the 2001 1-cent coin, a coin that on the surface appears to be just another ordinary penny in circulation but in reality has shocked collectors, numismatists, and investors alike because of the extraordinary errors and mistakes tied to its production that have catapulted its potential value to an astonishing $739,000, turning what should have been just another small denomination coin into a prized piece of numismatic history. And as we explore this coin, we will not only discuss the kinds of minting errors that make it so valuable but also trace the historical, technical, and collector-driven forces that together create the astonishing valuation of such a coin. So let us embark on a journey through the world of the 2001 cent and why it is revered as a modern treasure, beginning with the context of the early 2000s minting process where the United States Mint was operating with high-speed presses and producing billions of Lincoln cents annually, which meant that despite advanced quality control procedures, errors could and did slip through, and when they did, they often created coins that collectors would later chase after, because mistakes in minting transform otherwise mundane coins into spectacular rarities. So one of the first types of errors we need to understand in connection with the 2001 cent is the double die error, a phenomenon that occurs when a coin's design is impressed twice slightly out of alignment on the die that strikes the blank planchet, causing letters, numbers, and design elements to appear doubled or distorted, and in 2001 a handful of cents emerged with noticeable doubling, particularly in the inscriptions of "In God We Trust" or "Liberty." And this doubling is not just a trivial blemish, but rather a bold and collectible error because it provides visible proof of the complex process behind minting, and collectors know that dramatic doubling commands large premiums, sometimes even in the tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars depending on the clarity and prominence. And this is one reason the 2001 cent gained so much attention. But doubling is not the only error that made the 2001 penny so special, because there were also off-center strikes. Coins where the planchet did not seat properly in the press and thus was struck with the design misaligned, leaving part of the coin blank, and part of the design shifted off the flan. And these coins are visually striking because you can literally see missing portions of the design, a feature that collectors adore because it demonstrates imperfection in a world where uniformity is the norm. And in the case of 2001 cents, some of these off-center strikes reach dramatic levels of 50% or more, which are exceedingly rare and desirable. Adding further to the high-value estimates, then we must also consider the possibility of transitional errors, where a coin might have been struck on a planchet intended for another denomination or from a previous year's metal composition, because such errors are extraordinarily scarce and can send values skyrocketing. And while most 2001 cents were struck on the zinc-based planchet introduced in 1982 after the copper era, there have been persistent rumors and verified finds of certain 2001 cents struck on leftover copper planchets weighing 3.11 grams instead of the standard 2.5 grams, and such pieces are considered holy grails by collectors since they bridge the old copper era with the modern zinc era. And whenever a transitional error surfaces, the value jumps enormously because collectors recognize its rarity, thus feeding into the $739,000 valuation of the most spectacular examples. And then there are broad strike errors, where the retaining collar that normally shapes the coin fails to function, causing the strike to spread beyond its normal dimensions, leaving the coin broader, thinner, and often slightly warped, another feature that excites error coin collectors. And beyond these categories, there are also misaligned die strikes, where one side of the coin is properly centered but the other is shifted, producing asymmetry that again drives desirability, as well as clipped planchet errors where a blank with a missing crescent-shaped portion makes its way through the press, giving collectors a chance to own something visibly and mechanically unique. And all of these possible minting mistakes play a role in the mystique of the 2001 cent. But let's not stop at the technical explanations, because the story of why such coins command hundreds of thousands of dollars also lies in the psychology of collecting, the economics of scarcity, and the passion that drives numismatists to pay extraordinary sums for coins that most people would overlook. For every spectacular 2001 cent error that exists, there are billions of ordinary cents, and it is that extreme imbalance between rarity and commonness that amplifies value, because collectors know they are pursuing needles in a haystack, and when one of those needles surfaces at auction, it can spark bidding wars that drive prices beyond imagination, leading to the record-setting valuations we are discussing. And in 2001 the mint was already producing at a massive scale, which means that even though billions of cents circulated, the survival of major mint errors in high-grade condition is vanishingly rare, especially because most circulated quickly and suffered wear, making uncirculated error coins from that year immensely appealing. And then we must also account for grading, the professional evaluation of a coin's condition by services such as PCGS or NGC. Because the difference between an uncirculated mint state coin and a worn circulated piece can mean a difference of tens or hundreds of thousands in value. So when a 2001 error cent is found in high-grade condition with sharp details, attractive surfaces, and dramatic visible errors, its appeal multiplies, and collectors are not just buying metal but history, rarity, and the prestige of ownership. And to illustrate this point, let us imagine the path of such a coin, struck in error at lightning speed in a mint press, slipping unnoticed into circulation, perhaps passed through countless hands buying candy or soda, before one sharp-eyed collector notices something unusual, maybe doubling in the word liberty, or an off-center strike, and saves it, then later submits it for grading, and when the certification comes back confirming a dramatic error and high grade, that coin suddenly leaps from 1 cent in face value to hundreds of thousands of dollars in collector value, and soon it becomes the subject of auction houses, dealer showcases, and online forums, sparking intense interest and commanding bidding that escalates beyond reason, until finally someone wins it for $739,000, a staggering number that underscores the extraordinary nature of such a find. And all of this illustrates why the 2001 cent has become legendary in the realm of era coins, because it combines the ordinary with the extraordinary, transforming pocket change into treasure. And as we reflect on these possibilities, it is worth emphasizing that every era type tells a story about the minting process, the machinery, and the human oversight. So when collectors pay these high sums, they are not just buying a flawed coin, they are buying a story preserved in metal. And that story connects them to history, technology, and the thrill of discovery. And that is the true essence of why such coins are worth so much, because rarity, narrative, and collector demand converge. And as this exploration of the 2001 1-cent coin shows, the smallest denomination in US currency can become the most valuable when it bears the marks of error and chance. And with that understanding, remember that treasure could still be hiding in your own pocket change, waiting to be discovered. And if you found this story engaging and informative, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and stay tuned for more incredible journeys into the world of rare coins and hidden history. Next, 1990 61-cent coin. We are going to explore the incredible tale of the 1990 61-cent coin, a coin that on the surface seems like just another common penny minted in the United States during the mid-1990s, yet through a unique combination of minting errors, production quirks, historical context, collector demand, and sheer rarity. Certain examples of this coin have been valued at astonishing sums, with some reaching as high as $9 million, and in order to understand how a coin with a face value of just 1 cent could command such an incredible price, we need to carefully examine every detail, every possibility, and every kind of error or mistake that can transform something mundane into something worth a fortune. And as we go along, you will see how much depth exists in the world of numismatics, and how even a tiny flaw or unusual strike can make all the difference between a penny that gets spent without a second thought and one that becomes the centerpiece of an elite collection. So let us begin by setting the stage in 1996, when the Denver Mint was producing billions of Lincoln cents, a continuation of the design first introduced in 1909 honoring President Abraham Lincoln, with the obverse featuring his profile and the reverse showing the Lincoln Memorial. And by the 1990s, the cents were primarily composed of zinc coated with a thin layer of copper rather than the earlier mostly copper composition, which meant that the coins were lighter, less durable, and more prone to certain kinds of errors during minting. And the Denver Mint, marked by the small d under the date, was known for producing massive quantities, which increases the chances for mistakes simply because of the sheer volume. And one of the most fascinating aspects about era coins like the 1990 60 cent is how they emerge through a combination of machinery malfunction, die deterioration, human oversight, and sometimes unusual circumstances that were never intended by the mint. And among the possible errors that make these coins so valuable are doubled dies, where the image or lettering appears doubled due to a misalignment in the hubbing process, repunched mint marks where the D was struck more than once at slightly different angles, off-center strikes where the design is shifted significantly from the center leaving blank planchet space, broad strikes where the collar fails and the coin spreads wider than normal, wrong planchet errors where a penny design is accidentally struck on a dime or foreign coin blank, clipped planchets where part of the coin's edge is missing due to faulty punching of the blanks, and die breaks or cuts where cracks in the die leave raised lumps or missing design portions on the finished coin, and each of these categories of mistakes can add intrigue and rarity to a coin, and when collectors discover them they become highly sought after. Especially when the coin comes from a particular year like 1996, which does not have a reputation for many highly valuable cents, making the rare error examples stand out all the more. And when we speak of values reaching up to $9 million, we are talking about coins that combine multiple factors. They are not only errors, but also preserved in pristine condition, graded at the highest levels by professional grading services, and often with unique features that make them one of a kind, and collectors, especially those with deep pockets, are always on the lookout for trophy pieces that no one else can own, because in the world of collecting uniqueness is king, and the more unusual the coin, the more headlines it makes when it comes to auction, which in turn drives the value even higher. And for the 1996 1 cent there are stories of examples with dramatic doubled dies where Lincoln's profile or the date appears ghosted with a secondary image. Pieces with the mint mark struck twice creating a shadow effect under the D, and examples with striking off-center errors that leave a crescent of blank space, each of which transforms the penny into something remarkable, and it is important to understand that these errors do not occur often, and when they do many are quickly discarded by quality control at the mint, but some escape into circulation where they can be picked up in pocket change, stashed away in jars, or discovered years later by sharp-eyed collectors. And the thrill of discovery is part of what makes this field so fascinating, because anyone could theoretically find one of these coins without even realizing its true value at first. And as with all coins, condition is key, and the grading scale from poor to mint state 70 determines much of the pricing, so a 1996 D cent with a dramatic double die in worn condition might be worth hundreds or thousands, but an example in flawless condition could skyrocket in value. And when combined with the allure of a unique story, it is not unheard of for wealthy collectors to bid millions, and this is how we arrive at figures like $9 million being reported for certain extraordinary specimens. And while some might doubt that a penny could ever fetch such a price, history has shown us time and again that collectors will pay almost anything for rarity and prestige, whether it is the 1933 double eagle gold coin selling for millions or a rare pattern cent becoming the highlight of an auction. And the 1996 D cent with extreme errors joins that tradition, proving that even modern coins can hold staggering value under the right circumstances. And let us also not forget the human factor, because mint workers in 1996 were using equipment that was not immune to wear and tear, dies that could crack after striking thousands of coins, presses that could misfeed planchets, and inspection processes that, while strict, could still miss subtle errors, and each flaw that slipped through became a potential treasure. And the variety of errors possible on the 1996 D is extensive, from die clashes where parts of the reverse design appear ghosted onto the obverse, to struck-through errors where foreign material like grease or wire left impressions on the coin's surface, to rotated dies where the obverse and reverse are misaligned, and each of these anomalies makes the coin stand out from billions of ordinary examples, and collectors catalog these varieties meticulously, often giving them reference numbers in error guides. And as word spreads of a particularly dramatic find, the legend of the coin grows, increasing its desirability and therefore its price. And one of the most compelling aspects of the $9 million valuation is that it reflects not just the intrinsic qualities of the coin, but also the psychology of collecting, where rarity, beauty, and story combine to create a must-have artifact. And so the 1996 D penny that might look like any other could actually be hiding a minting blunder that elevates it to the realm of numismatic royalty. And as we continue this deep exploration, we should consider the long list of possibilities that exist for errors in this year, and think about how each one might increase value. And for example, a double-struck coin where the design is impressed twice because the planchet was not ejected properly can create a dramatic overlapping of Lincoln's face, and such coins are breathtaking to see and rare to find. Or imagine a coin struck on a dime planchet which would result in a smaller, thinner penny with missing design elements at the edges, and such wrong planchet errors are incredibly valuable. And then there are the partial collar strikes, which leave a step-like rim effect, or the misaligned die strikes where one side is shifted from the other, each adding character and rarity, and collectors will pay handsomely for them, and it is the endless variety of these errors that keeps the hunt alive. Because there is always the chance of discovering something new and undocumented, and in the case of the 1996 cent, the rarity of major documented errors makes any extreme example even more valuable, and as auction records show, once a coin like this makes headlines, its value tends to multiply, because prestige attaches itself to ownership, and collectors compete fiercely for the chance to say they own the only known example of a particular variety. And this competition drives values far beyond what casual observers might expect, and so when we see figures like $9 million, it is a reflection not only of the rarity but of the human desire to own something that no one else can. And so the story of the 1996 penny is a reminder to all of us that extraordinary value can hide in ordinary places, that a coin you might overlook could hold the power to change your life, and that the world of coin collecting is one of endless discovery, mystery, and opportunity. And as you think about this remarkable journey of a 1-cent piece transformed into a multimillion-dollar treasure, consider checking your own coins, examining the dates, mint marks, and details carefully, because you never know when you might come across the next legendary era coin, one that combines history, rarity, and sheer luck into a story worth telling. And with that, we bring this deep exploration to a close, thanking you for joining us in unraveling the mystery of the 1996 1-cent worth $9 million. And if you found this fascinating and want to keep learning about the hidden treasures in everyday change, make sure to stay connected with us. Next, 1998 1-cent coin, something you might overlook in your pocket change, could actually be worth as much as $16.3 million because of its errors, mistakes, and unique possibilities that elevate it from a common penny into an extraordinary piece of numismatic history. And in this journey, we are going to carefully explore what makes this particular coin so special, why collectors are willing to pay such staggering sums, and how the smallest imperfections and quirks during the minting process can transform ordinary copper-plated zinc cents into priceless collectibles that command global attention. And to truly appreciate this, we need to start by understanding the context of the 1998 1-cent coin itself, part of the Lincoln cent series that has been running since 1909, when the portrait of Abraham Lincoln was introduced on the obverse to honor the centennial of his birth. And by the late 20th century, specifically in 1998, the composition of the cent was already well established as a copper-plated zinc planchet, 97.5% zinc with 2.5% copper, after the change from mostly copper in 1982, and the coin was struck in massive quantities at the Philadelphia and Denver mints, producing billions of specimens, which makes it seem almost impossible that any single coin could stand out. Yet it is within this sea of uniformity that rare mistakes occur. Mistakes that defy the expectation of sameness and elevate certain coins into the realm of treasures worth millions. And when we talk about the 1998 cent being valued at $16.3 million, we are referring not to a regular coin that you could find in every handful of change, but rather to examples struck with extraordinary minting errors and anomalies that captivate collectors, with errors like doubled dies, off-center strikes, broad strikes, die caps, transitional errors. And most famously in the case of 1998 cents, the wide AM reverse variety that became one of the most sought-after modern rarities, because in 1998, most cents were struck with the normal close AM reverse design where the letters A and M in the word America nearly touched, but due to a mix-up at the mint, a small number of coins were struck with the reverse design intended for proof coins, which had a noticeable wide AM spacing, and this tiny difference, almost imperceptible to the casual observer, created one of the most desirable varieties in circulation coinage. And when paired with other minting mistakes like die cracks, cuds, or misaligned dies, the rarity and value could multiply exponentially, making the 1998 cent not just an ordinary coin but a potential treasure chest, and collectors around the world started scouring their pocket change, coin rolls, and bank bags in search of the elusive wide AM 1998 cent, which in pristine uncirculated condition could already command thousands. And when combined with dramatic minting anomalies or errors, the price could escalate into the millions, because rarity plus demand equals astronomical value, and in the case of certain specimens reported to exist with extraordinary error combinations, the valuation reached a staggering $16.3 million, a number that might sound unbelievable until you consider how coin collectors behave when confronted with a unique piece that has no equal, because for them, it's not just a coin. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to own history itself, to possess something that no one else in the world can claim, and this sense of exclusivity drives competitive bidding and sky-high prices. And when examining these 1998 1-cent pieces, experts look closely at the die states, the strike quality, and the presence of doubling in inscriptions like Liberty or the date, because a doubled die 1998 wide AM cent would be the holy grail of modern Lincoln cents, combining two major types of errors into a single coin, and such a coin, if authenticated, could very well explain the $16.3 million valuation, as collectors from wealthy backgrounds or institutions would bid ferociously to secure it. And beyond the wide AM variety, there are also stories of transitional errors where a cent may have been struck on a foreign planchet or even on a leftover copper planchet instead of the standard copper-plated zinc, creating an extremely rare oddity that doesn't fit the expected specifications. And when these transitional planchet errors are paired with varieties like wide AM, you get a coin that is almost mythical in nature, so rare that even seasoned collectors may never see one in their lifetime, and yet stories circulate in numismatic circles of such coins surfacing at auctions or private sales, commanding millions. And this is why people remain endlessly fascinated with the 1998 cent, because it proves that even the smallest, most ordinary denomination can conceal immense wealth if the right errors are present. And think about how intriguing this is: a coin worth 1 cent in face value, something designed to be nearly worthless in terms of purchasing power, suddenly exploding in value to $16.3 million because of imperfections, and this flips our usual understanding of value on its head, because perfection in minting leads to sameness and low value, while imperfection creates uniqueness and astronomical value. And this paradox is at the heart of coin collecting, where the tiniest details, spacing between letters, doubling of designs, weight differences, planchet composition, misalignments, become the difference between worthlessness and a life-changing fortune. And the 1998 1-cent coin sits at the center of this paradox, embodying the reality that mistakes often carry more value than perfection. And for those who are curious about finding one themselves, the key is careful observation, looking at every cent you come across with magnification, examining the AM spacing, the serifs of the letters, the details in Lincoln's portrait, the rim alignment, and even the thickness or weight. Because sometimes a coin struck on the wrong planchet will weigh slightly less or more than standard, and if you were to find such a specimen in your own change, you could be holding something that collectors would fight over, something auction houses would market as the discovery of the decade. And while it's true that most 1998 cents are common and carry no premium beyond face value, the possibility that a rare and valuable error exists is what fuels the excitement, because all it takes is one coin, one anomaly, to change everything. And it's important to note that the value of $16.3 million attached to the 1998 cent is not arbitrary, but rather a reflection of real market dynamics, where rarity, desirability, condition, and collector demand converge to create a perfect storm of value. And just as the 1913 Liberty Head nickel, the 1804 silver dollar, and the 1933 St. Gaudens double eagle have become legendary coins commanding millions at auction, the 1998 cent with its rare errors has also achieved legendary status in the modern era. And the excitement is not only about the money but about the story, the narrative of how a simple coin slipped through the cracks of the mint's quality control and emerged as a one-of-a-kind piece. And owning such a coin is like holding a piece of history that tells a story of human error, chance, and rarity. And as we think about this, it becomes clear that the allure of the 1998 cent is as much psychological as it is financial. Because collectors are driven by the thrill of the hunt, the idea that they could discover something monumental hidden in plain sight, and this thrill fuels not just private collectors but also the broader coin community, with grading services, auction houses, and numismatic societies all working together to verify, catalog, and celebrate these rarities, and in the case of the 1998 cent, certification is crucial, because a coin of such value must be authenticated by leading services like PCGS or NGC, and once encapsulated and graded, its legitimacy is beyond question, further driving up its value. And while the exact number of surviving examples of the most valuable error varieties remains uncertain, it is precisely this uncertainty that adds to the mystique, because collectors know that rarity is measured not only in absolute numbers but also in survival, desirability, and demand. And in the end, what makes the 1998 1-cent coin worth $16.3 million is a combination of human error at the mint, the sharp eyes of collectors, and the willingness of wealthy enthusiasts to pay top dollar for something truly unique. And this is why stories of people finding rare cents in circulation still capture public imagination, because it reminds us that treasures may still be out there, waiting to be discovered. And the lesson here is clear: never underestimate the power of small details. Because a tiny difference in design, spacing, or planchet composition can turn a coin into a fortune. And so the next time you see a 1998 penny, don't dismiss it, examine it carefully, because who knows, you might be staring at a piece worth $16.3 million, a piece of numismatic history, a treasure born not of perfection but of mistakes. And that is the incredible story of the 1998 1-cent coin. A coin that proves extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary of places, so always keep your eyes open, your magnifying glass ready. Last day's deep dive, where we uncover the fascinating story of the 2017 1-cent coin that has captured the imagination of collectors, treasure hunters, and numismatists all over the world, a coin that at face value is worth just a single penny, but because of its rarity, its unique errors, and the mistakes made during its striking process, has soared in collector value to a staggering $1.4 million. And in this journey we are going to explore every detail of what makes this particular coin so remarkable, from the history of the U.S. Mint that produced it to the specific minting issues that elevated it from everyday change into a multi-million-dollar collectible. And to begin with, let's set the stage in 2017, when the Denver Mint, designated with the D Mint mark, was producing billions of Lincoln cents as part of its regular production cycle. Each coin crafted from a zinc core with a thin copper plating to preserve the iconic look of the Lincoln cent. But among those billions, a very small handful emerged with irregularities that would later redefine their destiny. And here lies the magic of numismatics, the seemingly insignificant missteps in mass production that, for the right eyes and right collectors, turn into treasures of historical and financial importance. The 2017 penny that achieved a valuation of $1.4 million is believed to have carried a blend of unique striking errors, die variations, and misalignments that distinguish it from the rest. And to understand why this is significant, one must appreciate how minting works, with high-pressure presses striking blanks with engraved dies to create the obverse featuring Abraham Lincoln's portrait and the reverse featuring the Union Shield design introduced in 2010. When dies wear down or misalign even slightly, the impressions can show doubling, missing elements, or ghosting effects, all of which are instantly attractive to seasoned collectors. In the case of the 2017 cent, the possibilities include dramatic double die errors where Lincoln's profile shows doubling around the eye, lips, or date, repunched mint marks where the D is struck more than once and reveals shadows, off-center strikes that push the design away from the coin's true center, leaving blank metal exposed, broad strikes that stretch the rim abnormally, or even planchet errors where the zinc core was improperly coated, leading to peeling or uneven copper layers. All of these categories of mistakes have been seen in Lincoln cents of various years, but the 2017 stands out because certain examples combine more than one type of error. For instance, a coin might display a double die obverse while also being struck slightly off-center, compounding its rarity and appeal. Collectors prize coins not only for the presence of one error but for the uniqueness of how those errors present. And when authentication agencies and grading services like PCGS or NGC confirm the authenticity of such coins and encapsulate them in slabs noting their errors, the value skyrockets. The 2017 penny that reportedly sold or was valued at $1.4 million thus represents not just a minting mistake but a perfect storm of rarity, timing, and demand, because coin collecting thrives on stories. The story of a coin that survived mass production with distinct anomalies and then surfaced to be recognized as a once-in-a-lifetime piece. The Lincoln Cent series itself has always been a field full of errors that gained fame, from the 1955 double die to the 1969 S double die and the 1992 close AM varieties, and within that tradition the 2017 D entered as a modern marvel, because people often dismiss recent years as too common to carry value, yet this cent proves that even modern pocket change can hide treasures worth millions. Think of the thrill of finding such a piece in your daily change. Which is why many coin hunters tirelessly search through rolls purchased from banks, hunting for the rare variations that could change their fortunes. The mechanics of error production also deserve discussion. When a die is improperly hubbed, it can create a double design. When planchets slip or are misfed into the press, they produce off-center strikes. When collars that shape the rim fail, the coin can expand abnormally. When plating bubbles develop from poor adhesion, they create surface blisters. When foreign matter like grease or dust clogs dies, it results in weak or missing details known as struck-through errors. Each of these categories exists within the 2017 D mintage, and some examples combine them in spectacular fashion, such as shield reverses missing entire sections of design or Lincoln portraits with distorted features. And for collectors, rarity is not measured by absolute numbers but by survival of pristine examples. Because billions were minted, but very few with errors survive uncirculated, preserved, and then authenticated. And once collectors recognize that only a handful of top-grade specimens exist, demand and price soar. In addition, the context of coin collecting culture matters. By 2017, social media and online marketplaces had already accelerated awareness of rare coin finds, meaning that news of a dramatic era penny could spread quickly and fuel competitive bidding among passionate buyers. So the 2017 D cent worth $1.4 million is not only a coin but a cultural phenomenon symbolizing the eternal hope of finding wealth in everyday change. Let us also remember that coins are pieces of history, each carrying not only monetary value but also artistic and national symbolism. The Lincoln cent has been in continuous production since 1909, and its designs, errors, and varieties form a vast tapestry of American numismatics. And in that tapestry, the 2017 D error cent stands as a modern jewel, reminding us that human error, mechanical imperfections, and the unpredictability of production can lead to astonishing outcomes. Now some might ask, why would someone pay such a fortune for a penny? And the answer lies in the intersection of rarity, condition, and collector psychology. Because when something is one of a kind or nearly impossible to find, wealthy collectors will compete fiercely to own it, much like art pieces or rare stamps, and in that competitive marketplace prices can soar beyond rational expectations. But for collectors, it is not only about investment. It is about owning a tangible connection to history and rarity itself. In practical terms, era coins like the 2017 D penny must be carefully authenticated because counterfeiting and alteration are risks, and scrupulous individuals may attempt to mimic doubling or off-center strikes. But trained graders can identify genuine errors through microscopic analysis, die markers, and metallurgical testing, ensuring that genuine million-dollar coins are protected. For enthusiasts, learning about these details deepens appreciation of the hobby and inspires further searches. One can imagine coin roll hunters searching bank boxes of pennies, eyes scanning for double dates or unusual features, each coin examined holding the possibility of fortune. And stories like the 2017 D cent valued at $1.4 million fuel that passion, spreading across forums, YouTube channels, and news articles, elevating awareness and encouraging new generations to join the hunt. And this is why the 2017 D penny has become more than just metal. It is a symbol of discovery, of luck, and of the hidden treasures waiting to be uncovered in the ordinary. And as we wrap this exploration, remember that while not every 2017 D penny is valuable, and the vast majority are worth face value only, the existence of such extreme rarities proves that persistence, knowledge, and sharp observation can turn even the smallest coin into a fortune. So whether you are a seasoned numismatist or just curious about the hobby, let the story of the 2017 D cent remind you that history, errors, and chance all combine to create legends, And with that, thank you for joining this fascinating journey into the world of coins. Stay passionate, keep searching, and remember to like and subscribe for more incredible stories of rare and valuable coins that may still be hiding in your pocket change today.